Thank you, sir.
Thank you much.
Green light, everyone's good to go?
Yep.
And so it is 5:30, so I will bring this together, bring this meeting started. The Hillsboro-Deering public hearing and the school board meeting to follow. We are live streaming with our OWL video and audio for those watching at home or watching later. And it's on sau34.org. So the this meeting is audio recorded and everything's been posted in there by law. We do have a quorum. So the Hillsboro public hearing, and the purpose of this hearing is to accept unanticipated revenue in the amount not to exceed $19,546.88 received from Wadley, Starr, and Peters, attorneys at law, as reimbursement of attorney's fees paid to said law firm over the course of the last 4 years for the district's legal representation in the Conval lawsuit. So again, I did call the public hearing to order, calling it to order at 5:30, and I said we had a quorum and a recording. Can you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence. Board members, members of the public and staff, just take a look at I invite you to look at the school board norms on page 3 of our packet, reviewing them as far as how we'd like to conduct ourselves in our meeting this evening. The 3 norms that we've chosen: assuming good intentions, being present and prepared, and communicating effectively. If there's any questions or comments from the board, we can move on, and I'm recessing the meeting to the public hearing, calling the public hearing to order, and reviewing the October 29th correspondence from Wadley, Starr, and Peters, attorney at law. And that is, you have a copy of that correspondence.
I do.
If you don't mind
So,
sharing that with us. Thank you.
Dated October the 29th of 2025, to the Hillsboro-Deering School District at SAU 3478 School Street, Hillsboro, New Hampshire 03244. Re Kentucky Valley School District et al. Versus the State of New Hampshire Department of Education, Chris T. Sununu, Governor, and Frank Edelblue, Commissioner of Education. Dear Hillsboro, enclosed, please find our October 14th, 2025 billing showing the amount due from Hillsboro to be $143.79. This amount has been paid from the attorney's fees paid by the state as ordered by the court. Also, we are happy to enclose a check in the amount of $19,546.88, which represents Hillsboro's return of attorney's fees paid over the last 4 years. Very truly yours, Michael J. Tierney.
Cool, so it speaks for itself that they refunded our last bill and gave us the refund of attorney fees paid.
They didn't refund the last bill. The last bill was paid from the attorney's fees by the state.
Cool. Thank you for the correction on that. And so opening it up to public comment or any questions regarding the reimbursement of legal fees. We have to have the public hearing to receive the funds, but it's always nice to receive money, unanticipated or not. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to come forward and speak?
Excuse me, we might need to reverse the cable, Jenny, the input and the output side. I don't know why that matters. Sorry, we're getting ready for the next presentation. Sorry,
That's right.
I apologize. There are any members of the public?
Going once, twice, 3 times. So we'll reflect in our minutes that we have opened up the public hearing and there is no members of the public present and no one coming forward to ask questions or comments. And so at 5:40, we will move on and close the public hearing and call the school board meeting back to order.
All right.
And on that, so that next item, is there any correspondence this evening?
I just realized that we forgot to add under action items that you need to vote to accept the funds. I apologize. That will come later in the evening, but
I made it up.
that will be the walk-on item for action items.
It's okay, that's one of the action items that we have, I think the only one other than consent agenda. So other than that, is there any correspondence, other than the correspondence that we read from the law firm on the unanticipated funds?
No,
Okay. And
none for this evening.
there's something, and yes, there's something else that I was thinking about, but that's not in that spot. Any recognitions, we have a big one.
I do have recognitions this evening. So first and foremost, we did publish it in the agenda for this meeting, but we are inviting the Hillsboro-Deering High School football team and players and coaches to the December 1st meeting, so that we can do a formal recognition of them with them here at our meeting a week from now. But we did not want to not talk about the fact that they are the newly crowned state champions for Division IV. We're very proud of them.
Yes.
So we will go into names and all of those things at the next time. So other recognitions that we have. So Hillsboro-Deering Elementary School has developed a new initiative called HDES Heroes to recognize the members of the HDES community who consistently show cares throughout the day. So a reminder, CARES is the acronym that they use, and it stands for Cooperation, Assertion, Responsibility, Empathy, Self-Control. And I have a list here of those who have been recently recognized by this new program. For staff, we have Mrs. Hunt, who works in the Student Support Center, and Mr. Kyle, who is the daytime custodian. Kindergarten students, June Cashin, Oakley Wilder Patch, Adelie Wing, Brooklyn Edwards. First grade students, Holden Bissett, Samara Simones, Ken Bacco, Lavana Kivlin. Second grade, Berkeley Tilley, Everlyn Wing, Caden Brazes, Lillian Neal. Third grade, McKenna Dickinson, Cora Lugner, Harper Jackson. Fourth grade, Kennedy Greeny, Kyle Hooker, Angeline Quinones, Avery Osgood, and in fifth grade, Abraham Moss, Carter Edwards, and Finn Dillon. I have to say that one of the things that tickles me the most is when I recognize the last names of the elementary school kids, because that means that their parents were my former students. Anyway, Hillsboro-Deering Middle School is recognizing the girls soccer team for making the league championship game this year. Well done. And Hillsboro-Deering High School nominees for Student of the Month this month are Ava Bennett, Quentin Gathercole, Christopher Buck, Evelyn Breyerhoff, Gavin Ford, Aubrey Hartness, Jack Hebert, Liam Maldrino, Louis Neal, Jaden Poof, Liam Stewart, and Noah Welch. And the Student of the Month for November is Quinn Coombs. And again, the advisories nominate the Student of the Month and the Teacher of the Month. And so his peers said he is a great athlete that tries his best. He is great not just in sports, but also in being somebody people are not scared to talk to. He is smart and keeps his grades up despite being a student athlete. Congratulations, Quinn. And staff members at the high school who were nominated for Staff Member of the Month were John Bramley, Gabrielle Brown, Jane Burrow, Bethany Cooper, Brock Cullen, Natalie Gehrig, Marcus Holland, James McCabe, Mark Pyre, Jocelyn Perrin, Jared Powers, Jeremy Thompson, Jeffrey Wilson, and Jay Wood. And the Staff Member of the Month is Noah Denslow. And the students said this about Noah. He is funny, smart, supportive, and always willing to have fun if everything is done. He is a good person to talk to. He runs a club. He is very, very determined and dedicated to his job and his place in the school and the community. He has a clear passion for the content he teaches, like when he shares stories from history and previous classes he has taught. He is often found interacting with students outside the classroom and having interesting and respectful conversations about all sorts of topics which students gravitate toward. He has a natural talent for drawing students into his lessons, making each topic feel lively and relevant. He offers genuine support, whether it's helping with schoolwork or sharing practical fitness advice. His thoughtful gestures, like handing out candy during class and for gift kits, create a welcoming and fun environment where everyone feels included. Thank you, Mr. Denslow. And just as a reminder, both the student and staff members of the month are recognized with a plaque on the wall of fame at the high school. So that is what we have for recognitions this evening.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Dr. Crawford. Thank you for everything that all the students, staff, and faculty do each day for our students. And a special congratulations to our sports teams, especially our football team, Division IV state champions. We'll say that a few times. And we look forward to receiving them at our meeting on Monday night after Thanksgiving. So moving on into public comment. If there is anyone from the public that wishes to speak.
541.
It is, yeah, so 541 for the record, for the minutes. It's an opportunity for members of the public to speak an idea or concern with the board. Comments made should be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond. I don't see any new additions or members of the public. Anyone wishing to speak? So stating that for the minutes, public comment has been opened and offered at 5:41. We'll leave that running and come back to that later in the meeting. Moving on to the consent agenda, which has our minutes from the November 3rd meeting, which, yes, does seem like months ago, even though it was only a few weeks ago. And appointments, leaves, and resignations that was in our packet. Facilities use requests for Jean Gould's Christmas story time, as well as the fee waiver. Yes, there was a fee waiver. And the request, also a request for overnight field trip, the beach Hillsboro-Deering High School senior class trip on May 30th to June 1st. And then policy update, and it's the policies that are in final approval. BBA, school board powers and duties, BBBC, board member and or district officer resignation, BBBE, vacancies and unexpired term fulfillment, and DIE audits. Is there anything that anyone wishes to pull from the consent for questions or review, or are we okay with it? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Okay, Catherine makes that motion, Paul is seconding. So no further discussion as consent. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed, any abstentions? So we are 3-0-0. And you got that, Brittany? Student representative's report. I don't know if she left anything for us to read.
No, I think she was planning on it. No, I do not have anything to read on her behalf.
I guess, and if she does come a little bit later, if she comes, we can always bring
We
her
can
in.
always pause and have the superintendent's report.
Sounds good. So
The public hearing was much shorter than.
yes, than anticipated.
Than anticipated.
And so on that note, bringing that into superintendent's report.
All right. So for general update, and just to remind everybody that we have Thanksgiving recess from November 26th to December 30th. And we are closing campus down completely on the Thursday and Friday to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to take some time away. I would like to also let the board know that First Student, who is our contracted service provider for student transportation, donated the use of 2 buses to take students, players, and coaches to the football championship in Laconia on November 15th. We were very grateful. And it was a value or savings to the district of $525 for each bus. So that they were very, very excited to be able to support the team and help some of the students get up and be able to support the team as well. So we have that. I've also granted a waiver to the middle school for police coverage for their dance that is scheduled on December 5th because they have adequate supervision from administration and staff. So just as a reminder, the policy on that is I have the authority to do that under policy so long as I let the board know soon. So I did it today. This is as soon as we get. All right.
Thank you.
So that's kind of the general update. To be perfectly honest, a lot of our attention has been spent on putting together the proposed budget presentation that we're going to get to in just a couple of minutes. So I don't have a whole lot else to fill you in on. Becky has the October financial report, the budget versus revenue report that we previewed at the last meeting. Now, tonight, it's going to be the same because this is the October financial report. So we're not going to spend any time on revenues versus expenditures because we showed you, but just so you can see in your packet, they're going to be back to back from now on, so that we can talk about those two things. And then there is one budget transfer request, which also needs an action item. So, good heavens. All right, take it away, Becky.
Okay, so can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
So again, as Dr. Crawford said, that the budget versus revenue did not change much from last month because the data was run on 10/31/2005. You know, the budget versus, so we did receive deposits, they just have come in after November, so you will be seeing them more so on the next month's budget versus revenue. So just a couple very quick items to go over with you. Just, you know, basic things with salary. We have encumbered funds for the full year for this existing staff, but there's still, you know, positions out there that are vacant, but we also encumbered some more stipends. So you might see a little bit of a different fluctuation in there because when the stipends come in, you know, they kind of come in sporadically. And so that's why you might see a little difference there. I do want to bring your attention to the superintendent services, line 310. This amount was encumbered over the summer, but what happened is sometimes when you're doing, when you're working on invoicing and you get moving really fast, it asks you, would you type in an invoice if you wish to close the PO or leave it open? And it accidentally just got closed. So I do want to let you guys know that that's why you see there's a balance there versus last month. It just accidentally got closed. And when I caught it after the October 31st, but it's now been re-encumbered. So I just wanted to let you know that that's why there's a difference there. Moving down to rental equipment. Again, this is just a reminder that this is overdue to anticipated, you know, copy machines usage. We're just keeping an eye on it. And I think our next bill should be coming in probably around the end of December. So we're going to get a much better feel of what that's going to look like. And then I will come to you with a budget transfer. I just don't want to do it now until, because, you know, we have no way of predicting exactly what that's gonna be. But I have some good news. The water and sewer has been coming in much lower than it did last year. So I just want to let you know that we're not going to have a huge deficit in that area. So yeah, sorry, I was excited about that.
I was excited.
Yeah, compared to last year. Moving on down to repair and maintenance, which is your 423 line. No, sorry, 430 line. 430. We should see a higher balance next month as we receive the check from the trustees of trust fund. We received it, I believe, sometime on Friday. It's been deposited, so it's just not going to show up on this statement, but it'll show up next month.
What fund line was that again?
That was the 430 line. I said 423. I said that. It's the 430 line. Okay, telephone is still the same thing. We're keeping an eye on that, but that doesn't seem to fluctuate a lot. So I'm going to give it another month or so to see how the bills come in, and then I will be coming to you for a budget transfer. Again, it's something that I didn't want to do a transfer right away until we figured out exactly, you know, what the bills are going to look like. And sometimes that takes a couple months to do that. last month I had told you that, moving down to the software line, the 650 line, I had told you last month that, we had a negative balance because we had a couple duplicate purchase order, and one purchase order that was paid using the wrong account number. That has all since been fixed. And now we are back in the positive with that account. And then the last thing I just want to bring to your attention was the transfers to trust, which is going to be your 930 line. They were not encumbered. So I worked with our AP person and she has encumbered the money, so that's going to be showing on the next month's financial report. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I think, did you reference the DFS equipment? Is that what you're talking about, the 731?
Say that again?
It's underneath the equipment line,
The FS equipment,
Yeah.
731.
731. I can't remember, you might have said something about that.
Sorry, probably because of the public hearing.
It's under right now.
Yes, that's in the negative because we had to replace a freezer for, Anna, excuse me, was it a freezer or a refrigerator for the food service this year? Freezer Elementary School. So that's why it was just a little over than we expected. But I can bring in a budget transfer for your approval for that. Okay, and then I just want to quickly go over we have a budget transfer I don't want to forget about, so,
And that was included in your packet.
and that was in your packet, yeah. So we just want to transfer, some surplus salary, health and benefits and unfilled, paraprofessional lines to be transferred to special ed professional services line to cover individual service needs required under IDA. So we would like you to please consider approving that. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions
Okay, I'm sorry, what was that amount?
for the budget transfer?
Yeah,
It's in the packet.
just before, it's the decrease of 9,875,
And then another
And then
5,000.
and then another
So it's
5,000.
14,875.
Cool, thank you. So surplus salary to individual needs,
Yeah.
that's what we.
Surplus salary and health insurance benefits. So the total trust transfer is for $14,875.
Thank you for that, and thank you for staying up on everything you do. You wanna jump to?
No other questions for Becky? Great.
Yes.
Hi, Skylar. How are you doing?
Good. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it
It's
started.
okay.
That
Yeah,
is
you're
okay.
fine.
We had a public hearing that began at 5:30 and ended up being over relatively quickly, which meant we could start the meeting early. We all agreed that you could do your report when you arrived. And this is like perfect timing because the next thing I'm going to launch into is the proposed budget for FY27. So take it away.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, starting at the elementary school, they had an assembly last week where they named their next round of Hillcat Heroes, and everyone is very proud of them. The elementary school held its annual turkey trot today. We ran a total of 2,800 laps around the field. 8 students won turkeys to take home. They had a lot of fun running to the music in the snow, and they even had a visit from the Great Turkey.
A great turn.
Yeah. At the middle school. On November 5th, the middle school hosted their annual Veterans Day breakfast. A special thanks to Mr. Johnson and the student council for organizing this wonderful and thoughtful event. A student-led conference was held on November 4th. 73% of families attended a conference this year, so that is an exciting turnout to see. I have quite a bit for the high school. Now, not that anyone doesn't already know this, but once again, congratulations to the HHS football team for beating Mascoma with a score of 34-20 to win the Division IV state championship. There will be no school Wednesday, November 26th through November 28th for the Thanksgiving holiday Thanksgiving holiday, and then Breakfast with Santa is December 6th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. hosted by NHS. The craft fair will also be December 6th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the Hillsboro Holiday Parade is also December 6th, starting at 4:30 p.m. There will be no school for winter break December 22nd through January 2nd. The free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, is now open. Any student considering attending college should apply for this. Quinn Coombs is the student of the month, and Noah Denslow is the staff of the month. Congratulations on them for being outstanding members of the community. Thank you.
And just,
Awesome.
nice job on that. Thank you for presenting and all the good things happening. And of course, with the Vision 4 state champions, we'll plug it one more time. It's been since 1995, was that the last time?
95,
It's
so
been 30
solid 30 years since we have had a state championship. So,
Lots of
and
teams.
we,
up and
again,
up.
we will have them all here at the next board meeting on December 1st. We'll talk about all of it at length then. Looking forward to that.
I'll have to ask more stories about the Great Turkey. So thank you for presenting that.
Yeah.
All right.
So now moving on into.
So moving on to the presentation, Becky, can you hit the slideshow button at the top there? Awesome. All right. So Becky's gonna drive the slides for us. So at this point, if the members of the board and anybody who wishes to follow along, the administrative team has theirs as well, and any members of the public, there is a limited number of budget books that were up where the agendas packets are for the evening. Those are a limited number of hard copies of the budget book available for folks. But this is going to be we're going to read along as we go. So if everybody could go ahead and open their budget books up, and I'm going to have you referencing pages as we go throughout the presentation here. So this is leadership team's presentation. This is leadership team's presentation of the proposed budget to the Hillsboro-Deering School Board. I want to take a moment to point out that an awful lot of people put in a lot of time and effort into putting this together, but it remains a work in progress. And we will be continuing to make adjustments. We have some things that we want the board members to think about and consider and come back and talk with us more about those in a week. And then perhaps repeatedly over the course of the next several meetings. The budget books that were originally sent to the board, my original target date was Monday, November 17th. We did not make that deadline, and I do apologize for that. They did go out on, and were available the morning of Thursday, which was the 20th. Thursday the 20th, is that?
Yes, it was.
Right. Thursday the 20th. It was also posted online at that point and available. Since then, we have had some updates and additions. I'm going to say one more time, up on the shelf where the agendas are, there are a limited number of hard copies of the budget book available. The ones that are available to the public this evening already have the updated pages in them, but I'm just going to walk the members of the board through where your updates go in your budget book. So we've had updates to pages 1, 14, and 45. Again, for the members of the public, the budget books that are available tonight, there's a limited quantity of hard copies available. Those have already had the updates inserted in them. And in addition to the updated pages, which have a note at the bottom that is highlighted that says that it's the updated page, I have been just adding those to my budget book instead of taking anything out, just so there's an ongoing record of changes made. In addition to that, we decided that it might be helpful to have the line-by-line budget all in one place. The rest of the budget book divides it into sections. So there is also added to the budget book the line-by-line budget, and that should be slotted in at the end of section 1. So.
May I ask a point of order, please? The meeting in the calendar says it started at 6 o'clock. Can you tell us why it's starting at why it started earlier than 6
We
o'clock?
had a public hearing to receive unanticipated funds, and on the agenda, it did state that the board
Not on the
meeting
calendar.
would be following. It
It's
should
not
be,
publicly noticed on the calendar.
it was posted that way, I believe, because the postings that we received said that
6
the
o'clock,
public hearing was 5:30.
6 o'clock.
The public calendar of the school does not have that posted.
Maybe that did
I
not.
don't know if I know that the agenda for the board, that the meeting that was publicly posted, if the calendar invite didn't hit the right time, I apologize.
It needs to be on the calendar according to the RSA. It needs to be on the school calendar because you guys keep a school calendar.
fact
So
that
therefore, your public hearing needed to be here. for
Our
it to be a legal public
apologies for
hearing.
that, and we will make sure that that.
Recognize that that is the case, and if an error was made, I take responsibility for that, and I apologize.
So did we miss public comment? As a
There
result?
is another public comment for the board meeting coming up, so, and we.
So you're out of compliance with 91A.
Yeah, I wonder if the hearing is valid, if it wasn't posted
It's not.
properly.
With the public hearing too, do we wanna back up?
You may do whatever at the board.
So
may
the
do
pleasure, I
whatever
guess,
it-
I'll look to the board too,
Wishes to do it, that's
at the indulgence of the board too. Do we, pause where we are in the board meeting and open up the public hearing? And then come back to we can recess the public hearing and come back to the board?
That's fine.
All right, okay. So what we could do then, we'll pause, we'll go, I guess, in the minutes that we're at 6:03, we're pausing the board meeting and jumping back to the public hearing, since there was that mistake, and then that way all will have the opportunity to speak. And so the purpose of the public hearing is to accept unanticipated revenue in the amount not to exceed $19,546.88 received from Wadley, Starr, and Peters, attorneys at law, as reimbursement of the attorney's fees paid to said law firm over the course of the last 4 years for the district's legal representation in the Colville lawsuit. And so we've done the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not going to go through that again too. Calling the public hearing to order, and the correspondence that we received that we had read during the public hearing it's in our packet, but I will read that. It's to the Hillsboro-Deering School District. It is dated October 29th, 2025. In reference to the Contacook Valley School District lawsuit, Dear Hillsboro, please find our October 14th, 2025 billing showing the amount due from Hillsboro to be $143.79. This amount has been paid from attorney's fees paid by the state as ordered by the court. Also, we are happy to enclose a check in the amount of $19,546.88, which represents Hillsboro's return of attorney's fees paid over the last 4 years. Very truly yours, Michael J. Turney, and he is the attorney in the Colville lawsuit. So that being said, that was what we had read into it for in order to having the public hearing so that the board could then vote on receiving that check as unanticipated revenue. Does anyone wish to speak, either sharing a comment or asking questions regarding this reimbursement?
Becky?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't
Thank you,
see on
Becky.
the.
Rashay Colcom from Hillsboro. Just a quick question, have we verified that number of the 19,000 over the 4 years? And is that 100% that we verified?
There was an agreement. I'm sorry, can I-
Yeah, you can. I was just going to.
There was an agreement that was reached between the state and the plaintiffs for attorney's fees. So a number was settled upon, and the portion of the settlement that goes to Hillsboro-Deering is the number that's listed by the law firm.
Okay, because I know we put in the budget a lot more than that, but I don't know what we actually spent. I didn't actually pay attention to that part, but okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Okay. Seeing none, going once, twice, 3 times. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll close the public hearing. So closing the public hearing again now at 6:05. And we'll bring the board meeting back to order where we were at, and we were in the budget presentation. And so the board meeting is back to order at 6:10.
Thank you.
And then we did have we opened public comment, but unless there's anything burning, we will have public comment again later on in the meeting after the board discussion. So thank you, and thank you for the indulgences from the board and from the superintendent, and we'll pass it back.
All right, so we'll start again. So once again, there are a limited number of copies, hard copies of the budget book with the updated pages that are available for the public, and they are up on the shelf where the agendas are. They're the ones that are in the plastic covers. The board has their budget books and has been given their updated pages. So once again, pages 1, 14, and 45 have had edits made, and they are noted on those updated pages. And we have also now included a full listing of the line-by-line budget, just for convenience sake for folks, and it's broken into the sections as well. And that is best placed after the rest of the narrative in section 1 of the budget book. And so if you will be willing to follow along, board members, you also have at your place a copy of the presentation that is going to be up on the screen. There is also a limited number of copies of that are available for the public by the agendas as well. So again, this is the leadership team's presentation of the proposed budget to the school board. This is a work in progress at this point. There are a number of things, particularly with the projected revenues budget, that we know are going to need to be updated. A couple of things, we just got some updated information about late Friday afternoon and earlier today, so those didn't make it into the edits or the addition, but we'll bring those back around over the next couple of meetings, and that will continue to be something that we're looking at. The tuition is one of our main revenue sources, and until the Windsor and Washington budgets are set, what we're projecting for tuition is going to be up in the air a little bit as well. All right, so ready to go, Becky?
I'm ready.
Next slide, please. So this is in conjunction with pages 5 and 6 in your budget book. The section of pages 1 through 4 just kind of gives some background information, and I'm happy to answer questions about that later on if anybody has any. But pages 5 and 6 in your budget book are the portrait of a graduate and the strategic plan. And just as a reminder that the SAU 34 portrait of a graduate and strategic plan are the foundation of the programming that we offer here in the district, and that budgets are a reflection of current student needs and our programming. So moving on to the next slide, we have the enrollment comparison data. So this corresponds with page 7 in your budget book. So your budget book has the chart with all the numbers on this. This gives you a graphic representation of what has been happening with student enrollment from October 21 to October of 2025. Again, as a reminder to everybody, the official, it's called the BOY, beginning of year data point for the Department of Education for student enrollment happens with the October 1st numbers of each year. And so that is what we have here. And you can see that we've had declining enrollment across the district. You can see where that hits. You see how classes, as they move through, if you look at, again, there's the graph, but there's also the chart in your book showing that we have had the decrease in enrollment, which we had anticipated would continue from last year's projection. Does anybody have any questions about that?
You have one question, and if you don't have it handy right off the bat, but you could just send it to us, just a refresher on the breakdown of Windsor, Washington, Deering, and those posters. You know, I didn't see that anywhere.
Okay,
Hearing, I know was roughly, I think it was roughly 200.
Sure.
For that, I don't know what the exact number is.
we can, Becky, can you make a note?
Just take it out.
A couple of
We will bring that to the next meeting, if that is.
So you wanted to break down,
Yeah,
The number of students in each town.
yeah, it's helpful to have one certain Washington too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Going on to slide 4, again, this is some, I'm not getting into the meat yet, but it's just still kind of like background information of where we are. This is a graph on the slide that represents the chart that is on page 8 of your budget book that shows the staffing comparisons for FY '21 to '25. This chart is based on the class and staffing form that we submit plus any new hires after the submission deadline. This is, upon reflection, is not the only thing that should be in the budget book, and going forward, starting next year, we want to include the budgeted positions versus the staffed positions. This is only showing you the staffed positions that are in the chart. And the budgeted positions, I think, is going to be a more relevant data point, or an equally relevant data point, so we'll begin to include that. Does anybody have any questions about this? Again, this is just kind of some of the standard background that we generally provide.
Just for clarification, I mean, I think it may be obvious, but it's all buildings, you know, we're not just looking at one building in particular, but the entire campus, correct?
Yes, this is for the district as a whole.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so slide number 5 corresponds with information that is on page 9 in the budget book. So here we are with the potatoes, but the FY '27 proposed operating budget for Hillsboro-Deering, excluding the district's share of the SAU budget, is $23,934,186. This is a decrease of $778,692, or 3.15%, compared to the FY '26 adopted budget, excluding the district share of the SAU budget. The reason that we're talking about the operating budget excluding the SAU share is because the SAU is a separate article. And so looking at how they all add together, making sure that we're doing that, but we'll see that referenced. The proposed SAU budget appears on the separate warrant article. If the proposed the proposed FY '27 SAU budget passes, and this is the budget that the SAU board approved to move forward to public hearing. The assessment for Hillsboro-Deering, and this is one of the data points that might change in the next month. We got some information from the Department of Education about the formula for the SAU assessment. So this might alter slightly, but what we have right now is $1,001,515. If the proposed FY '27 SAU budget fails, the assessment would be $1,002,563, which is $1,048 more. The current collective bargaining agreement between the Hillsboro-Deering School Board and the Hillsboro-Deering Federation of Teachers expired on June 30th, 2025. Therefore, salaries for those job categories remain budgeted at the FY '25 levels. An agreement for a new contract was approved by both the full Federation membership and the full Hillsboro-Deering School Board, and it will go before the voters as a separate warrant article in March. Approval of the proposed HDFT contract will add an additional $270,939 to the operating costs for FY '27. The current collective bargaining agreement between the Hillsboro-Deering School Board and the Hillsboro-Deering Support Staff Union, HDSS, expires on June 30th of 2026. Therefore, those salaries for those job categories remain budgeted at the FY '26 levels. An agreement for a new contract was approved by both the full union membership and the full HD School Board, and will go to the voters as a separate warrant article in March. Approval for the proposed contract will add an additional $211,651 to the operating cost for FY '27. If all 4 proposed warrant articles are approved, so that includes the operating budget for Hillsboro-Deering, the SAU operating budget, the contract for the Hillsboro-Deering Federation of Teachers, and the contract for the Hillsboro-Deering support staff. If all 4 are approved, the total cost will be $25,418,291, which is a decrease of $302,858, or 1.18%, compared to the FY '26 adopted budget, which includes the district's, plus the district's portion of the SAU budget, which totaled together $721,149. So again, the slide that you have kind of like summarizes that information. We're going to get into the details of this going forward. Do any members of the board have any questions about this initial summary?
We'll go into the details later about, because that's just the first year cost of the contracts.
Tonight, we're talking to you about the proposed FY '27 budget, and so yes, we're talking about that. The warrant articles themselves
We'll have
have the costing of both years. So the Hillsboro-Deering Federation of Teachers contract is a proposed 2-year contract, and that warrant article, which we don't have tonight because we don't usually talk about the language of those, would include the cost for both years, and the Hillsboro-Deering support staff contract is a 3-year contract and would have all 3 years of that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have draft warrant article
That's fine.
language tonight, and I wasn't anticipating having that for you on December 1st. That was going to be more along the lines of December 15th meeting.
That's fair enough.
The turnaround. Other questions?
Do you have any questions, Paul?
Great. Moving on then to slide number 6, Becky, which corresponds with page 11 of the budget book. So the graphs and charts that we're going to talk about next summarize the income or revenue and expenses for the general fund for fiscal year 2021 through 25 are the actuals when they're listed. For FY '26, it is the adopted budget, and I do want to continue to remind folks, which was the default FY '26 budget, not the proposed FY '26 budget. And one of the reasons that it is important to remember that, for those of you that were here for this last year, the FY '26 proposed budget and the default were not, there was not a huge amount of money difference between them. It was just under $9,000 different. But the FY '26 proposed budget did a lot of realignment of where the funds were in order to get things into the categories where they more correctly belong and in alignment with accounting practices. So the FY, when we're comparing, but what we can compare with is what the FY '26 adopted budget was, which kind of is the default budget. So none of those changes are sitting in the adopted budget. The board did approve in June a 500 line, I want to say. It was, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think it was actually around 500 line.
Yes.
Budget transfer to realign things back where they were, but we start from what the actual adopted budget was. So some of the larger fluctuations that you see will have the note that, realigning to a more appropriate expense. But this chart, again, just kind of lays out the basic revenues as we're starting on page 11. And then on page, or slide number 7, aligns with your budget book, page 13, which gives you the pie chart that talks about where the revenues come from in the budget. Again, the revenues are projected revenues at this time. There are a number of categories, including miscellaneous revenue, other state aid, that we know, and tuition that we know if those numbers are going to change. So this is really just a rough estimate at this point in the process.
One of my questions too is other restricted aid.
Other restricted aid, this is going to be the projected last year of the, a grant from the state to phase out the EFA grant of the state. So it's going to be a projected thing. And we believe that number, this is one of the data points that we just got, that number is actually going to go down. The tuition revenues are still in flux because we're still in the middle of doing the budgets. The order of the budgets, just in case anybody is interested, goes the SAU budget gets put together and proposed to the SAU board first. Hillsboro-Deering goes next, and then Washington and Windsor flow after that. The reimbursement for special education, that's that kind of complex formula. We get reimbursed for expenses from the previous year when the cost of educating an individual student exceeds 3.5 times the average per pupil cost of educating that student. And then anything above that 3.5%, the state is supposed to reimburse us at 80%, but they don't, or they have not been able to do it at the full rate that they're supposed to. So there's some fraction thereof, and that's where that comes in. But those are expenses that were incurred in the previous year. So in FY27, special education aid received will be reflective of costs that were actually incurred in FY26. Any questions about the revenue piece? Again, it's really a rough estimate at this point. We'll get more and more precision to that as we go over the next couple of months.
It's the same thing I imagine with Medicaid revenue. That's just an estimate of what we're expecting, but that can
Medicaid is one of the places that is most difficult. The rules for what is and is not a reimbursable expense have changed, and what is and is not allowable. So these are services that we provide to students as the district that are reimbursable through the Medicaid process, and that's something that we keep a close eye on. But it's not a simple process, and that does fluctuate a lot. So that will remain our best guess right up until the time we go forward with that.
Thank you.
Becky, can you go to slide 8. So the proposed budget revenues, again, this is just another chart looking at this, reminding that FY 26 is not including the warrant articles. So the total proposed budget of $23,934,186, less all revenues from adequacy aid through rentals. And again, right now, these are our projected numbers for this, equals $14,770,829. And that is the amount that gets divided between Hillsboro-Deering using the percentage of the FY26 cooperative apportionment, which factors in average daily membership and equalized valuation with utilities. I would like to note here that we have received direction from the New Hampshire Department of Education, which is recommending that we only budget 95% of the adequacy aid estimate that they provided, because those numbers can also fluctuate. And so based on that, that is what we have used in our revenues budget, is that 95% total. But the full estimate that we have that was provided in beginning of November, middle of October, I've lost. But do you have the date on your adequacy chart?
Are you looking for? Yep.
Yes. Does that have the date on it?
Yes, it does. November 15th.
As of November 15th. The adequacy estimates were that Deering would be receiving $692,817.46, and Hillsborough would be receiving $5,023,588.77 for a total of $5,716,406.23. So again, in the revenues, which is just the preliminary set, what we are using is the 95% of those totals as instructed by, or as recommended, not instructed, as recommended by the Department of Education. Statewide education property tax, also usually known as SWEPT, is collected locally and is part of the municipality's tax burden. Adequacy aid is a grant, and that is not part of the municipality tax burden. It is a complicated formula that starts with a per pupil count, the average daily membership, which is multiplied this year it will be multiplied by $4,351. The New Hampshire Supreme Court upheld the ruling that this amount is unconstitutional and should be a minimum of $7,356.01. The New Hampshire legislature has not yet acted upon that ruling. And so this is the adequacy estimates that we received from the Department of Education. Again, miscellaneous revenue largely relates to contracted services to Washington. This includes speech language, occupational therapy, the facilities contract, the technology contract, both of which we will be bringing to you on the December 1st meeting for your approval. You had your first look at them a couple of weeks back. Washington has signed off and is asking you to do the same. It also includes things like rebates or refunds would go into the miscellaneous revenue. Special education aid, previously called catastrophic aid, again is a reimbursement to the state for qualifying expenses from the previous fiscal year. Other restricted aid, again, the Education Freedom Account phase out grant, and this is projected to be the last year that money will be part of this equation. Tuition comes from sending districts and is based on student enrollment. Transportation revenue is a state grant that partially reimburses us for transporting students to Concord Regional Technical Center. Medicaid revenue comes from reimbursable services provided to students by the district. And rental revenue relates to the central office space that is rented by the SAU. Does anybody have any questions about the revenue categories?
Questions from board members?
Not yet.
All right. Becky, if you then go to slide number 9. So the most significant swings in the revenue line. This is compared to FY, and there's, I was gonna play a game.
I know, it says 7.
Find a typo in this one, but I'm sorry. The title of slide number 9. Becky, can you move to slide 9? There we go. Should they say compared to FY 26, not FY 25? I apologize. So the largest changes, the adequacy aid is a decrease of $993,709. There's an increase in SWEPT, $56,264. We're looking at, again, this is a rough estimate, that there'll be a tuition increase of $226,496, an increase in miscellaneous revenue of $23,214, that there'll be a decrease in other restricted aid of $11,149, a decrease in projected Medicaid revenue of $65,000, and a decrease in the rental income of $20,000. Remembering that the rental income decrease also comes with a significant drop in the amount of money you pay for the rental as part of your reimbursement. These are the most significant swings for the line. That's all I've got. Questions about the revenue? All right. Moving on to slide 10. So slide 10 is also going to go with page 14 in your budget book. Again, the posted budget book and the one that you received last week we did not yet have the Hillsboro tax rates. We do have them now, so we were able to update that. The hard copies of the budget book that were available to the public this evening have the updated page in them. So this slide shows the history of tax rates since 2020. The tax rates combined with property values to determine tax bills. The school's operating budget does not align with tax rates, as you can see from the budget trend line in black. For example, the FY24 budget shown as FY23 increased by less than 0.3%, but Hillsboro's tax rate increased by nearly 29% that year. This is due to changes in other revenue the district receives. Significant unexpended funds returned to the municipalities contributed to lower tax rates for 2020, 2021, and 2022. In 2022, the state provided a one-time increase in adequacy aid, which reduced the local SWEPT burden by about $400,000. In 2023 and 2024, tax rates returned to what we've seen as more typical levels. Beginning in 2025, what was called the Hold Harmless Grant was reduced by 20% of the prior year. This grant previously ensured that adequacy grants increased by at least 4% annually, and we no longer have that protection in place. Both Hillsboro and Deering conducted property reassessments this year, resulting in significantly increased property valuations across the community. Increased property valuations resulted in lower tax rates. And so this is all of the accurate data that we have. But the drop in the tax rates, which don't have dollar signs for FY26, the drop in the tax rates is largely attributable to the reassessment that happened of property values. So individual tax bills are a different picture than that. So I just want to be clear about that. We hadn't had a reevaluation for a while. So it looks like there's a dramatic reduction in the tax rate, and there is, but that does not mean that there is a dramatic reduction in individual tax bills, because the evaluation of people's homes is higher than it was pretty much across the board. And anecdotal reporting from individuals is that most people saw significant increases in their property valuations this time around. Question?
Yeah, I know Deering, for first-hand experience from Deering, it was like $200 or $300 increase a year to anywhere past $1,000.
So again, it's going to depend on the individual value of somebody's home, what the actual dollar increase is. This is the rate that people are paying per $1,000 of value on their home. And so you have to compare what your house was valued at the previous year and your tax bill to what it's valued at now, and your tax bill to look at it. So depending, it's a complicated process, and you're not going to see like a uniform number of dollars, across the board that it went up. It's a percentage.
Questions from board members?
We wanted to particularly make sure that we pointed it out, not that this is new information to anybody, but I don't want anybody to think that the graph is trying to show you that, hey, look, the tax rates, plummeted, and that it was because of the budget increase from the previous year was less than 1%. So it was not a comparatively large budget increase, but the fact that the tax rates came down is attributable to the property valuations increasing. Okay. Good?
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, the next slide, which you have in your book, and if anybody wants a larger version of this, I can certainly make one for you. But this is information that Becky and I thought might be helpful for folks as you were reading your budget books and reading all of the budget lines, right? Each line in the budget comes with like this whole ton of numbers and being able to figure out. So if you look in your call the presentation, the hard copy of the presentation
This one.
on page 11. So this didn't make it into the budget book because I hadn't considered its usefulness until we were putting the slideshow together. So page 11 of the slideshow is just intended to be helpful information to help people see how the budget codes are put together. And because we're going to talk about the budget by object code, and then we're going to talk about the budget by function code. We tried to break it down 2 different ways to explain it and where things are going. Again, if people want a full-size version of this, I'd be happy to bring you a copy for the December 1st meeting or even put it in the packet for the December 1st meeting. But the first 2 digits of account number are the fund. So the general fund, the operating budget of the district is Fund 10. And then there's a dot, and then we come up with a function code. So function codes are used to identify the section of the budget. For example, general education, special education, school counseling, facilities, what have you. The next 3 digits are used to further break down a function. So sometimes, for example, in the activities budget, activities is function code 1400. The next 3 digits, sometimes you'll see a 000 and sometimes you'll see a 050. And that helps differentiate between athletics
And
activities. So those are used to further break things down. In special education, you will see that section of numbers used to break out alternative programming that happens, the life skills program at the high school, summer programming. They'll all have a separate breakout. The next section is a 3-digit number, which is called an object code, and this is the account by type. So it tells you whether it's regular salaries or contracted services or travel expenses or a whole myriad of other things. So all of these codes are part of the general accounting system that we use, and in your budget book and some of the opening pages, it talks about what that is. I would also like to tell you, as a preview of coming attractions, that the budget manual, the accounting manual, is currently in the process of being updated and amended, and many of the different codes and what they mean are going to change beginning in FY28. But this is what we have for right now. And then the last digit at the end of each budget line tells you where in the district this comes from. If it is a 0, this means it's a district level expense. If it's a 1, it's at the elementary school, a 2 is the middle school, and a 3 is the high school. So again, this is just meant to be like kind of a legend for you. I think for folks that are used to looking at the budgets, it's probably familiar information, but sometimes it helps to just have a reminder of it. Does anybody have any questions?
Just the alt program, would that be under the high school? If it's the high school alt program?
So the Hillsboro-Deering High School Alternative Program is a regular education program, but it's a subset of regular education. So you'll see that in the account codes that go with that are 10.1100.050. And then you have your object code and then .3. There are other programs that are designated as alternative programs. Those are special education programs in the elementary, middle, and high school, and those would be in function code 1200 because that's for special education.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so looking at the budget itself and what we have put together as a proposal. So what we decided to do this year is take you through the budget in 2 different ways. Becky, if you can move to slide 12. We're going to take you through the budget two separate ways. The first one is by object code. So starting with page 15 of your budget book. There is a pie chart that shows you by object what the proposed budget intends to pay for, and then it breaks it down with the dollar amounts and percentages of the budget. So 49.92% of the budget, for instance, is made up of salaries, and 27.72% is made up of benefits. And then you can see in descending order listed on page 15 of your budget book where all of the rest of it falls. So this is the summary page, and we're going to get into what all of this looks like next. Does anybody have any questions about the summary? I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty in a minute.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty, but software isn't necessarily the actual software, but that's licenses too, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's why the number is what it is.
All right, so looking at slide number 13. Slide number 13 is going to correspond with pages 16 through 19 of your budget book. All right, so starting on page 16 here, we have the summary of what the major increases, the key expenditure changes are, the increases and decreases. When Becky and I put together the slides to highlight, we made kind of the arbitrary decision that anything that was a $5,000 or more swing, we would put on the slide pages for you to pull them out, and then the budget book itself. So salaries and benefits have object codes in the 100s and 200s. The proposed FY27 budget eliminates 8 teaching positions, 2 paraeducator positions, and 4 cafeteria monitor positions. It also repurposes 3 paraeducator positions to add a board-certified behavior analyst, also known as a BCBA. Of the 17 positions impacted by these changes, 16 are currently unfilled in FY26. A combination of declining enrollment, lack of high-quality candidates, and shifting needs of students make these changes in the best interests of the district, both programmatically and fiscally. The district has a fundamental philosophical commitment to meeting student needs through in-district rather than out-of-district programming to the greatest extent possible. It is in the best interest of students and families, and it is nearly always a cost savings. Altogether, the costs associated with salaries, benefits, and required employer contributions for Social Security, usually referred to as FICA, and the New Hampshire retirement system, usually referred to as NHRS, paid taxes for active employees account to 77.64% of the FY27 proposed budget. The district makes the mandatory FICA contribution of 7.65% on all wages. The district makes mandatory contributions to the New Hampshire retirement system of 19.23% of wages for full-time teaching, professional and administrative employees, and 12.75% of wages for other eligible employees. Hillsboro-Deering is one of many school districts that belong to an insurance pool managed by Health Trust. Our health insurance plans are through Anthem. Beginning in FY26, the district piloted a site of service called ABSOS, or known as ABSOS health insurance plan in order to potentially reduce costs. We will continue to offer eligible employees a choice between the traditional plan, known as AB20, and the SOS plan, health plan in FY27. In your budget book, on page 16, there is a chart that lays out what the guaranteed rates are and what the current contributions are, and what the proposed contributions are in the contracts that are up on a separate warrant articles. The, I guess, cut to the chase on this is that all of the insurance plans are incredibly expensive. The AB20 plan saw an increase of 12.8% over FY26, and the ABSOS plan saw an increase of 15.8%. The actual dollar amounts of that plan are lower, and the dental plan that we have saw an increase of 4.4%. In the proposed FY26 budget salaries, the legally required employer contribution to Social Security and the New Hampshire retirement system and insurance benefits equal $18,583,016.03, which is a decrease of $821,623.96 from the adopted FY26 budget. I'm going to pause when we get to the end of each object code section and see if anybody has any questions. So that was salaries and benefits. Questions? All right. Contracted services. The contracted services expenses have object codes in the 400s. This includes rentals, contracted repairs, lease payments, the grounds maintenance contract, the custodial contracts, and water and sewer services. In the proposed FY27 contracted services equals $1,382,435.90, which is a decrease of $105,363.10 from the adopted FY26 budget. The grounds maintenance contract is currently out for bid. We have a guaranteed one-year extension at the current rate, and that was what was used for the FY27 proposed budget until we have proposed contracts to bring to you for approval. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. So that number is going to change, but that is what we're using right now. If the decision is made to move the Hillsboro-Deering High School alternative program from its current location in rented space to the Hillsboro-Deering main campus, we would have an additional reduction in the cost for rent and custodial services from this line. And this is one of the points that I'm going to continue to return to as we go through the presentation. Like the board to be seriously thinking about the fact that we can relocate the Hillsboro-Deering High School alternative program back to the main campus for the beginning of the 26-27 school year, so for FY27.
Do we know how much savings?
I'm sorry, Catherine, I can't hear you.
How much would the rent savings be if we brought the,
So,
go back?
Rent savings.
so that is in the detail line by line. So if we were to bring the program back, or to bring the program to the main campus, starting at the beginning of next year.
Yep.
The savings would be in the rental, the custodial contract, the pest control contract, the custodial supplies would be like the things that would be the largest savings. In the first year, we would need to reserve money and budget money for the summer to do renovations in order to bring the program back. So you would not see the total savings, but you would no longer have year-over-year expenses that we don't need to continue to incur. So it would be savings with that. There will also be some other things that we're going to refer to as we go through the budget. Eventually, there will be staffing savings. It is not recommended, I am not recommending in the first year that we make that adjustment because the program needs to move and get settled. But then this is the place where we are looking to have a cut in the number of administrator positions in the district in the years to come. But that would be more of a year 2 or a year 3 item. Other questions about contracted services? Tonight is not so much asking people to make decisions. I just want to put thoughts in heads for contemplation and future discussion. All right, moving on to transportation. Transportation expenses have an object code of 510. This includes all student transportation, daily home to school, special education, athletics, field trips. And the proposed FY27 transportation costs equal $1,176,882, which is a decrease of $43,662 from the adopted FY26 budget. The current contract for routine transportation services expires June 30th, 2026, but has an option for 2 one-year extensions. That is the cost that was used for the proposed FY27 budget. The reduction in transportation expenses is due to an anticipated reduction in the need for specialized transportation. I do want to point out that specialized transportation costs and special education out-of-district tuition costs are two of the things that can fluctuate the most year over year, and also what we are anticipating can change dramatically at multiple stages during our budgeting season. This is what we are projecting as of right now. If the decision is made to move the Hillsboro-Deering High School Alternative Program from its current location and rented space to the Hillsboro-Deering main campus, we would have an additional reduction in the cost for transportation. Questions about transportation?
Those contracts are, like the busing contract's been in place, correct?
The busing contract is currently in its third year,
Yeah, we're finishing
and
the
it
third.
has built into it the 2 one-year extensions. We've used the extension amount. So even if we decide if we go out to bid for that contract this year, what they have in there as the extension will be like that's what we're budgeting. We're not gonna agree pay more than that to somebody. I would not imagine it would be the board's pleasure to agree to pay more to somebody else.
That's the first student contract, right? Is the other contracts, the special, because we have one for specialized education.
We have specialized transportation services. There's specialized transportation within the first student contract, and then there are other specialized transportation contracts because we have folks that need to be transported other places or have particular circumstances that mean that they can't ride what's provided by first student.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to professional services. The professional services expenses have object codes in the 300s. This includes the cost of the school resource officer, legal fees, audit services, registration fees for professional development, and services to meet student needs such as school psychologists and special education supports. In the proposed FY27 contracted services equals $723,307.51, which is an increase of $152,850.51 from the adopted FY26 budget. Again, this is one of those places where the adopted FY26 budget and the proposed FY26 budget have a great deal of space between them, because the adopted FY26 budget is actually the FY25 budget. And so any of the year-over-year increases for things like our SRO services from the town that we get each year, you're not able to see that in the change the way that it is. Questions about the professional services? Next up, we have propane and electricity. Propane and electricity expenses have object codes in the 620s. This includes the cost of propane, electricity, and gas for district-owned vehicles. In the proposed budget, FY27, propane and electricity expenses equal $421,407.95, which is a decrease of $15,328.05 from the adopted FY26 budget. The propane contract is up for renewal, and this uses the new rate. Becky will be talking with you about that at the December 1st meeting. The electrical contract is up for renewal in November of 2026, and this uses a projected rate increase, our best guess based on information that we have gathered. The estimated usage for FY27 is less due to efficiency measures compared to current usage levels. Questions about propane and electricity? All right. Tuition. Tuition expenses have object codes in the 560 and 561. This includes the Concord Regional Technical Center, otherwise known as CRTC, out-of-district placements, and a new requirement for lines for open enrollment tuition. In the proposed FY27 tuition budget, tuition expenses equal $375,004, which is an increase of $104,464 from the adopted FY26 budget. Tuition expenses are based on student need and projected participation in CRTC. Anybody have any questions about the tuition object?
Okay, do we have a current number of how many people are participating in CRTC at the moment?
Is there a current number? Yes. Do I have that off the top of my head right now? I do not. Becky, please make a note. We will bring that to the December 1st meeting.
And if we did have need that was gonna outweigh that current number, that's something that could be
We have
adjusted.
budgeted for an increase in CRTC tuition based on projected student interest, which is our best guess for next year.
That's the best as we can do.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to books and supplies. Books and supplies expenses have object codes of 610 and 640. This includes all required books and supplies across all departments. Any item with a unit cost of under $500 is considered a supply. In the proposed FY27, budget books and supply expenses equal $375,191.51, which is a decrease of $48,604.49 from the adopted FY26 budget. Questions? This is one of those areas where you, like, again, this was part of the proposed budget last year as well, but since we're seeing declining in student enrollment, it then follows that the individual costs there are something that we would need fewer units of each item to serve student needs. Software expenses have an object code of 650. This includes required software and subscriptions purchased through the technology department, or mostly the technology department. Some of it's through a couple other places in the budget. In the proposed FY27 software expenses equal $290,753, which is an increase of $24,606 from the adopted FY26 budget. Unfortunately, software licenses continue to go up. It is something that we continue to manage. This is also a place that we see a little bit of this money. It shows up as the full expense in the expense budget because it has to, but then we see a bit of revenue come back because Washington pays for their usage of some of our software contracts. We're able to legally negotiate that way. Not all of them allow it, but those that do, it benefits both districts. Other purchase services. Other purchase services expenses have object codes in the 500s, other than the 510, which is transportation. This includes the cost of telephone services, travel, postage, printing, property and liability insurance, advertising, and field trip admissions. In the proposed FY27 budget, other purchase services equal $267,312, which is an increase of $49,023 from the adopted FY26 budget. The two most significant increases are in the cost of our telephone services and an increase in our property and liability insurance rates. We are researching other telephone service options to see if we can bring the cost of that down. Questions? All right. Transfers. Transfer expenses have an object code of 930. This is money that we use to transfer to the school food and nutrition program at the end of the year. We have a legal obligation to offset any shortfalls in the food service budget at the end of each fiscal year. In the proposed FY27, transfer expense equals $118,000, which is an increase of $43,000 from the adopted FY26 budget. In FY25, the transfer to food service increased from the historical amount of $50,000 to $75,000 in the proposed budget. We continue to make adjustments to the program to increase quality and participation while attempting to minimize costs. but supply and staff expenses in this area continue to climb. The FY27 proposed budget increases the line to $118,000, which reflects the actual transfer that was required at the end of FY25. So this is one of the consequences that will come about. Consequences sounds hard. Outcomes. One of the things that will happen as a result of the elimination of positions that we have not been able to staff the last several years means that will impact at the end of the fiscal year the unexpended fund balance that exists, which is one of the places where things like $43,000 additional dollars to fund the food service transfer came from. In order to protect the financial interest of the district, I think it's important that we are budgeting for what we anticipate is more in line with the actual amount of the food service transfer and not hoping that we'll be able to make that up in other places. But it does add $43,000 to that line. Questions?
Just thinking out loud, I guess, is it more supply and staff as opposed to participation in the program?
So participation in the program is the revenue for the food service budget. And in your book, we're not going to talk about it in great detail tonight, or really at all, but in your book is the first run of the proposed food service budget, which is completely separate from the operating budget. It is Fund 21, and it has its own lines and expenses, and it has its own revenues. But this is where the crossover comes. One of the revenues for the food service budget is at the end of the year, whatever money that they haven't made to cover their expenses has to be transferred from the general fund to the food service fund because we have a legal obligation to balance that book at the end of the year. So student participation, selling food, is the revenue source for the food and nutrition program. But our food and nutrition staff are members of our collective bargaining agreement. Staffing costs have increased over the years. I don't know if you remember, those of you that were here, but it was a couple of years ago that Grant and I started talking about the fact that the $50,000 hadn't covered the food service transfer for a very long time, and that we needed to increase it to at least $75,000. Again, this is increasing it to make sure that we have the money to cover. This is, again, what we are proposing in order to try to be fiscally responsible. But it's one of those things that I really would like the board to think hard about and decide what you believe is the best way of approaching this.
Our costs, like what we're charging in the buildings for like the meals as well as for the a la carte items, we're kind of, I mean, are we in line with other districts? I know that there was talk about increasing, but we decided to leave it.
We decided to leave it, and part of the calculus on leaving it is to try to not drive up the unpaid lunch bills. And also, we don't want to drive down participation because there's a tipping point with that. So it is, I am not aware of any, there's probably one someplace. I am not aware of a subsidized school lunch program, so that has to follow the rules from the Department of Agriculture in order to receive the subsidies, that makes a profit. It's a balancing act. We're trying to balance it as best as we can. But the cost of food and labor has gone up at a much higher rate than what we charge for the lunches. But if we charge a higher rate for the lunches, we would sell fewer lunches as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only outside the box thing that I'm thinking of now is, if it even exists, is there ways of cost sharing with other districts or other SAUs to try to get the best pricing we can, with volume, more volume discounts.
Oh, for
than we have
purchasing?
For purchasing.
We do in fact do that. We are part of a purchasing consortium in order to do that. And we are always looking for other ways that we can save costs. Some districts do choose to contract food service out. That is not something that we have done. That has lots of implications to across the board. But this is what we're proposing for the transfers. It's just something to think about.
Any other questions from board members?
Dues and fees are expenses in the object code of 810. They include dues and fees across all departments and the expenses associated with the high school graduation. In the proposed FY27 budget, expenses equal $99,735, which is a decrease of $18,695 from the adopted FY26 budget. Hardware expenses have an object code of, I'm sorry, I didn't have, does anybody have any questions about dues and fees?
Imagine, is that decrease just tied to enrollment, like the size of each class, or just was curious? Don't see too many places where it's going down. The 18,695.
I beg your pardon, there are many of these object codes where the price is going down, in fact, almost all of them. So, but yes, I mean, it ties into the decline in staff that we are projecting, the decline in student enrollment, and also the realignment of expenses to the proper areas. But most of the things that we've discussed so far are showing there are more decreases than there are increases, I guess. Okay, so we'll take it back by that. Hardware expenses have an object code of 651. This includes required hardware purchased through the technology department. And the proposed FY27 budget, hardware expenses equal $91,210, which is a decrease of $69,790 from the adopted FY26 budget. This is definitely tied to the projected decrease in enrollment and staffing, so the number of devices that we need. So we have that. I do want to point out that we are anticipating a need for money from the trust fund for the servers, which is what we've been, one of the larger items that we've been saving the money up in the trust fund for. But this is the individual devices. Questions about hardware? And then equipment. Equipment expenses have object codes in the 730s. This includes required equipment purchases across all departments. Equipment purchases need to have a unit price of $500 or more. It's an accounting distinction, not a definition of the use or longevity of a particular item. It's using it on the marker. In the proposed FY27 budget, equipment expenses equal $29,931, which is a decrease of $29,569 from the adopted FY26 budget. All right, Becky, can you please, sorry, does anybody have a question about the equipment? Okay. Becky, can you please move us to slide number 20? Sorry, I said slide 20, it's budget book page 20, it's slide 14. There we go. That was my fault. All right, next up, we are going to look at the budget again, but this time we're going to look at it by department and by function. So again, the functions are the large functions or area of the budget. This charts in your budget book on page 20 that correspond with this pie chart that we have here on your slide show the different areas and what percentage they make up of the proposed budget. And the chart below in your budget book shows the adopted FY26 compared to the proposed FY27, the dollar difference, and then the percent difference in each of those areas. So regular instruction, we're looking at a decrease of 10.38%. Special education, an increase of 1.68%. Student services, an increase of 1.7%. Vocational education, again, this is the tuition to CRTC, is looking at a 24% increase. Athletics and activities, a decrease of 6.8%. Curriculum and staff development, a decrease of 1.44%. District administration, so this is, they always say district administration and school administration, so reminding folks that district administration, this is function codes 2310 and 2320, which is the school board and administrative services. This includes unemployment compensation insurance, workers' compensation insurance, the rental contract for the copiers, and advertising. That is district administration. That is down 1.11%. School administration is the principal's office expenses, and that includes both administrators and support staff, and that has a 7.28% increase. Media and technology is a 3.6% decrease. Facilities has a 3.54% increase. Transportation is a 3.58% decrease. And debt services and transfers, we do not have any debt services per se. So that is the food service transfer. And again, with the $43,000 additional dollars, that's a 57.33% increase. The total operating budget is a 3.15% increase over last year. So the next section in your budget book is just the line by line of the entire budget. If you turn to page 21 in your budget books, we're going to start looking at this by department and function and what this pays for. So again, all right, Becky, if you could move us to slide 16 at this point, thank you. And this is going to correspond to budget book pages 21 through 24, and we are going to look at the elementary school. All right. So page 22 in your budget book, regular education, which is function 1100, there is a decrease of $231,784.50. This reduces 4 teaching positions. 3 are vacancies that were created due to staffing changes. These positions are not filled in FY26 and are eliminated in FY27. I want to pause here. I should have said this earlier and point out the fact that when a position is eliminated from the proposed budget, it is also eliminated from the default budget. If a position is repurposed within the proposed budget, then it remains in the default budget. So when we say these positions are eliminated, they're coming out of both the proposed and the default budgets. All right. So 3 vacancies created due to staffing. 1 vacancy will occur due to an anticipated retirement at the end of FY26, and the position is eliminated in the FY27 budget. Needs will be met through existing staff moving forward. 4 cafeteria monitor position vacancies were created due to staffing changes. These positions are not filled in FY26 and will be eliminated in FY27. Health and dental insurance premiums have increased. We've increased the substitute line to reflect the actual anticipated needs at the elementary school. The increase in professional services reflects a realignment of some expenses to the more appropriate line and anticipated increases in subscription service fees. There is a decrease in anticipated repair and servicing of musical instruments. Supplies reduced to anticipated needs for FY27 based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. Books are reduced to anticipated needs for FY27 based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. As a reminder, this is going to be year 3 of 6 of not having to budget for benchmark advanced reading materials due to the grant, the ESSER grant that we had that funded the purchase. This was the only federal grant that we've had that where the supplement not supplant rule did not apply, and so we were allowed to buy curriculum books with it. That is not something that we are typically allowed to do with federal grant funds. Furniture and fixtures was reduced to anticipated needs in FY27. Regular education, there's a new function line of 1190. This is a new legal requirement. Using the function code 1190 is what is being recommended by New Hampshire Ed, that we use the function of 1190. The budget is for $1 to open the line. This is the requirement that we budget for open enrollment. There are currently, as of right now, 2 districts in the state accepting students under the open enrollment statute. But the amended language that went into that is going into effect says that we need to have a budget line for it. It's impossible to actually predict potential expenses for this line in the current circumstances, but this meets our legal requirement when we're following the guidance of both legal counsel, the New Hampshire School Board Association legal counsel, and the New Hampshire ASBO, which is the school
Business.
Business Administrators Association, and the Department of Education to do it this way.
Under current law, we're not open enrollment. This is proposed
So
legislation.
every district in the state under current law, starting with this budget, has to budget an open enrollment tuition line. There are currently only 2 districts in the state that have voted to accept open enrollment tuition students.
Thank you.
Okay. That, of course, may change at some point. All right, so that brings us through regular education. Does anybody have any questions about what is in the regular education section for the elementary school? Okay. Special education at the elementary school. This is a decrease of $66,031.60. It reduces a half of a special education teacher. This position is currently unfilled. There is also a special education position that is currently unfilled at the high school. The FY27 budget reduces 0.5 from each school and is going to make that a shared position moving forward in the district. This reduces 2 paraeducative positions that are not filled in FY26 and will be eliminated in FY27. These are positions that we have been unable to fill consistently for several years, and continuing to budget for them is not meeting student needs, and it's not working fiscally for us either. So the special ed department is proposing a new model to meet student needs due to several years of this. And we'll talk more about what that looks like when we get to the middle and high school sections of this. Salary and benefit adjustments in the alternative learning programs due to staffing changes. There's increased substitute line in special education to reflect actual anticipated needs. Health and dental insurance changes resulting from change in coverage requirements for staff and premium increases. A decrease in professional services based on student needs. Anticipated out-of-district placement requirements. Again, I want to be clear with everybody that this is something that can fluctuate dramatically during the budget process, right up until it gets blocked at the public hearing. An increase in postage to reflect FY25 in actual costs. Equipment line is opened with $1 in case of a requirement arises and a transfer is required. So again, student need drives special education equipment expenses, and we want to make sure that we're able to accurately report them if we need to have them. So that's why it's in there with the $1. Summer programming, salary adjustments based on student needs. Questions about special education at the elementary school? Okay. Activities, there's a decrease of $16.80, and it's due to an adjustment in New Hampshire retirement rates between FY25 and FY26. Again, because we had the FY25 or FY26, we have the default budget instead of the proposed budget. This is a carryover change from before. In guidance, which is function 2120, we're really hoping the new accounting manual retitles this school counseling, because that is what is a more accurate term. There's a decrease of $96,106.14. The behavior interventionist salary was previously coming out of this line. It was repurposed to a regular education teaching position in FY26. The health and dental adjustments reflect repurposed position and the increase in premiums, and the increase in the supply line is due to student needs. This line includes needs for 504 plans, which are not eligible for any of the federal grants. Questions about the guidance functions? Nursing services, there's a decrease of $346.62 in salary and benefit changes due to staffing changes and increased premiums, a decrease in professional services due to a realignment of expenses, a decrease in supplies due to student needs, and no anticipated equipment requirements for FY27. Question? School psychology. Function 2140, there's an increase of $31,457.91. This is due to a change in salary and benefits due to staffing. Speech therapy. Function 2150, an increase of $24,027.13. That's an increase in salary and benefit costs. Occupational and physical therapy, which is function 2160, it's an increase of $527.23, which is an increase in salary and benefit costs. Media library, function 2220, there's an increase of $3,197.53. There's a change in salary and benefits due to a staffing change, an increase in insurance premiums, and book supplies and professional services reflect both the realignment of expenses to more appropriate lines and a reduced need due to student enrollment. Questions? Moving on. Principal's office, function 2140. There is an increase of $10,614.21. The principal's salary line includes 2 staff members. The office salary line includes 2 staff members. Adjustments in salaries are made to align with assigned duties and comparative positions and due to staffing changes. A change in insurance requirements due to a staffing change, an increase in insurance premiums. There's a realignment of expenses for office support, conference to appropriate lines, an increase in supplies due to anticipated need, and a decrease in postage due to anticipated need. Questions about the principal's office of the elementary school? Okay. Transportation, which is function 2720. There's a decrease of $7,000. The decrease is for field trip busing needs. The overall proposed FY27 budget for the elementary schools shows an overall decrease of $635,968.67 compared to the FY26 adopted budget. The next pages in that section in the budget book are the line by line of just the elementary school. Again, those are going to be the account numbers that are ending with that .1 as their number. Questions before we move into the middle school? Yes, you don't need to ask me. Just go ahead and do that. All right, moving into the middle school. Becky, could you please move to slide 17? You're already there. Look at you go. All right, we have some, in your budget book, there is some general information about the middle school. And then starting on page 26 through 27, we're going to talk about the functions one at a time here. All right. Regular education. Again, this is function 1100. There is a decrease of $231,784.51. This is a reduction of 1 teaching position. The health teacher vacancy was created due to staffing changes. The position is not filled in FY26 and is being eliminated in FY27. The needs will be met through existing staff moving forward. 1 teaching position moved from the middle school to the high school budget in FY26. Due to staffing change, we moved the tech ed teacher based in the middle school to a building trades teacher based at the high school. We're very excited about the programming implications of this. So this is a position just like the tech ed teacher position, which teaches classes that both middle school and high school students take. But because of building trades and what is able to be offered and the level of where the certification lies, that rests in the high school regular education function now. Health and dental insurance premiums increased, reduced the substitute line to reflect actual anticipated needs. Some subscription services were realigned to a more appropriate line. There was an increase in anticipated repair and servicing of musical instruments due to an increase in program enrollment, which is actually a really exciting thing to happen for the music department. Supplies were reduced to anticipated needs for FY27 based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. Books were reduced to anticipated needs for the FY27 based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. Furniture and fixtures were reduced to anticipated needs for FY27, and the academic excellence line reflects actual anticipated needs at the middle school. This is mostly used, not entirely, but mostly used for the 8th grade celebration at the end of the year. Questions? All right, again, we've added the function 1190 with the $1 for the open enrollment. Special education, this is function 1200. There's an increase of $102,914.48. This is we increased a special education teacher in FY26, which does not show in the proposed FY26, or in the adopted FY26 budget, but was part of it, of the proposed, and we have that. It repurposes one para-educator position plus 2 para positions at the high school to a board-certified behavioral analyst, otherwise known as a BCBA. The special education department is proposing this new model to meet student needs due to several years of not being able to staff para-educator positions at the required level. Increases the substitute line to reflect actual anticipated costs. Health and dental insurance decrease resulting from a change in coverage requirements for staff. There's a decrease in professional services based on student needs. An increase in postage to reflect the actuals from FY25. Again, special education department is requesting to open the equipment line at $1 in case a requirement arises and a transfer is required. But they don't anticipate a need right now, but that's one of those places where it happens more often than not. In order to be safe and to get things in the right categories for reporting purposes, we'd like to have the $1 to keep it open. And then summer program staff adjustments based on student needs. Special education questions for the middle school. All right, activities, which are function 1400, there's a decrease of $2,009.91. The function includes co-curricular activities, after-school activities, and athletics. Salary adjustments in alignment with anticipated needs. An increase in New Hampshire retirement contributions as more coaches and advisors are teachers, and we have that New Hampshire retirement requirement for that. A decrease in athletic supplies to reflect the FY27 needs. Questions about that? All right. The guidance function, 2120, the increase of $2,161.78. This shows a decrease in professional services due to student needs. Again, this line includes needs from 504 plans. A decrease in supplies for student needs also shows supplies for 504 plans. Salary and benefit adjustments to reflect current requirements, and added dues and fees to properly align expenses that had been previously charged in a less appropriate line. Questions about guidance? Nurses, function 2130, it's an increase of $19,806.15. There are salary and benefit increases due to track change and increased premiums, and a change in needs, and a decrease in professional services due to student needs. Nursing questions. All right. School psychology, it's 2140. There's a decrease of $5,249.16. Increase in salary and benefits, but this is also spread over split between two buildings. The alignment of the school psychology expenses between the middle and high school is one of the things that could possibly change over the next month as we're looking at where staffing is going to be positioned. We have 2 full-time school psychologists in the district, and then we have a chunk of contracted services where we contract with somebody else. And we try to get them in the proposed budget aligned to best reflect where those services are going to be happening for the following fiscal year, but that can change based on student need. Speech therapy, function 2150, an increase in $7,977. This is for an increase in salary and benefit costs. This is also a place that we might see a change. We've traditionally been budgeting a school psychologist that's shared between the middle and high school in the middle school, and an occupational therapist shared between the middle and high school at the high school. I would like to change that moving into this budget. We just didn't have the changes in play yet for the budget book, so that they more properly align with the building that the services are happening in, or the school, I should say, the buildings are not the schools are the schools, where the services are happening, because then the end of year reporting, including the per pupil cost, is more accurate if we do it that way. So that is also something that there may be a change over the next month or so. Media library, which is functioned, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions about that?
You actually asked the school psychology, you answered my question about how it's already shared between buildings as needed. And so
Yes.
typically, I mean, it can be adjusted throughout the year, but typically it's for the entire year unless there's a change in student needs or something that comes up.
Unless if there was a significant change in student needs, we might have to shift staffing during the course of the fiscal year.
Okay, so shared whenever possible, which is, good to see.
Media and library expenses, 2220. This is an increase of $10,217.64 due to a change in insurance requirement, an increase in insurance premiums. Book supplies and professional services reflect both realignment of expenses to more appropriate lines and reduced need due to student enrollment. The principal's office, which is function 2140, there is an increase of $64,802.02. There's the principal salary line includes 2 staff members. The office salary line includes 2 staff members. There's an increase in salaries to align with assigned duties and comparative positions. There's also was a change of staffing, which changes the insurance requirement due to the staffing changes, and changed the insurance requirement significantly. An increase in insurance premiums, a realignment of expenses for office support conference to the appropriate lines. The increase in supplies and postage expenses due to anticipated needs, and a decrease in dues and fees to properly align expenses. Questions about the principal's office at the middle school? Okay. Transportation function of 2720, a decrease of $7,000. This is a decreased athletic and field trip busing needs. So the overall proposed FY27 budget for the middle school shows a decrease of $39,010.87 compared to the FY26 proposed budget.
I thought of this when we went through the elementary school and middle school, and it's going to be the same with the high school. The media library function in each building, when you have that third item, books, supplies, and professional services, I mean, they're not traditional librarians. They're other duties that can fall under that as needed, correct? As far as helping out with IT and computer support.
So they're library media centers, and so in addition to traditional library that you might remember from school, there is a certain amount of tech aspect that goes with that. They're each staffed by a certified librarian.
Okay.
All right. So, and again, you have the line by line breakdown of each of the things that we discussed. All right, moving on to the high school, looking at slide number 18. Thank you, Becky. And looking at budget book pages starting 28 through 31, but we're gonna start looking at the 29. All right. Particularly here in the high school, it is important to note, and this is at the top of page 29 of your budget book, high school alt program in regular education is what we call the high school alternative program, also colloquially known as the alt. High school alternative programs in special education, that's in the 1200s, are special education self-contained programs other than life skills, which has its own function code, just at the high school. Okay. So regular education, again, we're talking function code 1100. There is a decrease of $231,784.51. This reduces 2 teaching positions, a math position and a science position. These vacancies were created due to staffing changes, and the positions were not filled in FY26, and they are eliminated in the FY27 budget. Again, a reminder that when a position is eliminated in the proposed budget, that also eliminates it from the default budget. 1 teaching position moved from the middle school to the high school budget, and this was, again, the tech ed teacher, which was a middle school-based position, transitioned to a building trades teacher, which is based at the high school. We have anticipated new hire savings due to anticipated retirement. There's health and dental insurance premium increases, an increase in the substitute line to reflect actual anticipated needs. An adjustment was made to the instructional stipend structure to reflect current needs. The training line was reduced to reflect actual need coupled with alternative funding sources, such as the Title II grants that we have available. There's an increase in professional services, reflects in a realignment of some expenses to the more appropriate line and anticipated increase in subscription service fees. There's an increase to repair and maintenance to align instructional equipment servicing to the appropriate line. This includes the repair and servicing of musical instruments and microscopes. Tuition is reduced to anticipated expenses for FY27. This includes dual enrollment and project running start. This line will fluctuate annually. Foster placement expenses were reduced to anticipate actual needs in anticipated needs in FY27. Travel was reduced to anticipated needs for FY27. Supplies were reduced to anticipated needs for 27 based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. Books reduced to anticipated needs based on program offerings and anticipated enrollment. Furniture and fixtures were reduced to 0. No new items will be necessary in FY27. There will be requirements again in coming years. Dues and fees reflects the realignment of expenses to appropriate lines in FY26 and the actual anticipated needs for FY27. This previously included travel expenses associated with conference attendance. The academic excellence reflects a realignment of graduation expenses to the more appropriate line beginning in FY26. Questions about regular ed at the high school? Again, we're adding the open enrollment line. Special education function 1200. At the high school, this is a decrease of $74,679.61. It reduces a 0.5 special education teacher. We talked about this at the elementary school. It's currently an unfilled position, and there will be a shared position moving forward. Repurposes 2 paraeducator positions plus the one from the high school. Again, this is the BCBA we talked about previously. Increase the substitute line to reflect actual anticipated needs. Health and dental insurance premium increases. Increase professional services based on student need. Increase in out-of-district tuition based on currently known requirements. Again, this is subject to change, and it could change multiple times over the course of the next couple of months. Equipment line being opened at $1 in case an expense arises and transfer is required. A salary line adjustments due to staffing changes. Summer program increase due to anticipated needs. And life skills program expenses decrease based on anticipated student needs. Special education questions for the high school. Vocational tuition, we talked about this before because it's its own function line. We'd like to increase that by $12,000 due to what we anticipate to be student need for CRTC tuition to Concord. Activities, function 1400, there's a decrease of $22,729.98. This function includes co-curricular activities, athletics, and summer school. Going forward, not this year, but next year, we're going to look to realign the summer school expenses to a more appropriate spot. But this is where they have lived for as long as I can remember, for a reason that I don't have any idea why somebody originally put them here. But when we do the realignment of the accounting manual, I'm hoping that there's an answer to this question. So rather than bunny hop it this year to someplace that then goes to someplace else, we're going to do the change in 28. Let's see, there's a small reduction in activity salaries. Activity supplies have been reduced to reflect the anticipated needs for 27. The reduction in the athletic director salary and benefits reflects a change in staffing that occurred in FY26. The increase in athletic referees and trainers is based on the anticipated NHIAA rates for FY27. We're kind of handed those like health insurance rates. Athletic supplies and equipment for the referees. The trainers is where we pay the contracted service for we've been utilizing the services of the Hillsboro Fire Department EMS squad for that successfully. Athletic supplies and equipment have been reduced to reflect anticipated needs. Athletic dues and fees, there is an increase. Again, we kind of handed those. Those are the participation fees. And summer school staffing is adjusted to reflect anticipated student needs. Questions about the activities function? No. All right. Guidance function 2120, an increase of $13,274.39. This is an increase in professional services due to student needs and rate increase. This line for the high school includes needs from 504 plans and Project Lift access. Travel realigns expenses associated with an annual conference to the proper line, and mileage to provide student support services. An increase in supplies moves funds from equipment to supplies as the cost of the required items falls below the threshold for equipment purchases, and an increase in insurance premiums. All right. The nurse at the high school function 2130, a decrease of $2,142.25, an increase in the supply line to meet student needs, no equipment requirements in FY27. School psychologist 2140, again a decrease of $84.60.83, increase in salary and benefits, but a decrease in the contracted service amount. Again, where all of the school psych expenses will end up between the middle and high school is still under review. Occupational and physical therapy, again, this is solely right now in the high school, and we'd like to get it split between the middle and high school appropriately, but for right now, it's an increase in $7,094.87 based on salary and benefits. Media library function 2220 is a decrease of $2,355.39. It's an increase in insurance premiums, a realignment of expenses from equipment to supplies because of that threshold, decrease in book budget due to decrease in student enrollment, and a reduced repair budget to align with anticipated need. Questions?
Repair budget, is that repair under the last one, the last bullet?
The media, so the repair budget is for repair, good Lord, the repair of equipment for the most part. The laminators are just an egregiously expensive piece of equipment, and that's part of it, but we aren't anticipating much of a repair budget for next year. Principal's office, function 2140. This is an increase of $26,822.87. Again, the principal's salary line includes 2 staff members. office salary line includes 2 staff members. There's an increase in salary for the assistant principal to align with assigned duties and comparative positions. The principal's salary, however, will be in year 3 of a 3-year contract that has no annual increases in it. There's an increase in insurance premiums, a realignment of expenses for office support conference to appropriate lines, and an increase in supplies and graduation expenses due to anticipated needs. Questions about the principal's office? Okay. Maintenance, function 2600, decrease in $3,372. Now, this is different. This is important. This is going to answer your questions, Catherine.
Yes,
All right.
I see that.
All of these expenses in the high school, right, the 2600 function .3, the .3 at the end of that number. All of these expenses relate to the high school alternative program's current location in rented space in Deering. If the high school alternative program is relocated to the main Hillsboro-Deering campus, the budget could reflect an additional reduction of approximately $22,668. And this is because we would be looking to reserve approximately $50,000 for necessary renovations to ensure appropriate physical space in the new location. The $50,000 could then be removed from the FY28 budget as they would not be a recurring expense. Currently, the way that we do this, it is a year-over-year expense that we're doing this. This would be a way to make it the last time that we have those needs. We do not currently have a fixed plan for where on campus we would relocate the high school alternative program. We are undertaking, the group from the facilities committee is doing a space study about all kinds of space use on campus. This is part of that. There are programming decisions that need to be made and looked at. What I can tell you definitively is that there are a minimum of 5 appropriate spaces that could be used on campus. They have varying levels of renovations that would be required. We are not prepared to put a stake in the ground as to which space is the best place right now, but confident that we would be able to have that by this spring so that the move could happen and the last rent payment that we would be making would be in June of 2026. But again, that's one of the bigger questions. We've left those monies in the budget all the way across the board for the high school alternative program to remain where it is. I would like us to talk seriously about making the switch for the fall of 26 and the FY27 budget and have those come out, and that would reduce the bottom line further.
So that'd be,
At least 22,668 in year 1, perhaps more. That is just for the maintenance expenses. There's an additional transportation expense that we would be able to take out as well. And then, like I said, in FY28 or FY29 at the latest, probably, again, this is a programming thing, we would be able to reduce administrative position costs because once the move is made back to campus and a repositioning, the duties of the director could be reasonably absorbed by the middle and high school leadership teams, but the move has to happen in order for that to happen. And I would see, anticipate additional savings down the line. The level of program access, the level to which program access would increase for the students is monumental by relocating back, and the cutting out of the travel time during the day is huge as well. Again, not something to have a big discussion about tonight. I just want it in people's brains to be thinking about that is a potential for significant savings both this year and in the coming years. Paul, you look like you want to ask me a question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as far as space on campus, we've always kind of hedged on that. Are we going to have to put an addition on something?
No, what I'm talking about is again, we are in a different position that we were, the last time that we looked at this seriously was close to 10, it's like around 10 years
That
ago.
was when I was on the board.
Was
I
it
was the
because you were
chair.
on the board
I
the
was the
first
chair.
time?
Yeah.
And, our enrollment is different. The number of people that we have is different than it was. And just like when we talked about the need to reserve space in the SAU budget for renting space off campus, we don't anticipate that need is going to arise at any point in the next 10 years because there's fewer people on campus and there's spaces where things can happen. So not prepared to go into details about the various spots, but there's at least 5 places that we can look at seriously on campus. They require varying levels of renovations in order to provide the things that make this a good setting for the high school alternative program. It provides the emotional safety and security for the students in the program that is necessary and then meets the physical requirements in the New Hampshire Department of Education and space requirements for the number of square feet for, per student and all of those things. But I am confident that we have spots that we can make appropriate and that we can do it within the time frame available. The cost of the renovations is up in the air. The more work that we can do toward figuring that out, the better that we can kind of figure out what the replacement or the renovations budget would need to be. But every single one of them would result in a cost savings in FY27 and then additional savings in the coming years.
Sounds good.
What you're looking for, I guess, would you want it tonight or on Monday, direction from us as far as?
Oh, I don't
We
think
want you
you
to
should
do
make
that?
any decisions about any of this tonight. I think you should,
Okay.
this
The
is.
budget it's as is, it's leaving, she said she's leaving the budget for the old school as is. But if
If we were,
to make the decision later on down the road, then we would have potential additional savings.
and we could potentially save money in the proposed FY27 budget. But no, I, first of all, you don't have a full board tonight.
Right.
Second of all, it is, this is a lot of information to take in. It's part of how we timed this the way that we do. You had a few days to try to read through this, and then we're gonna explain it and try to answer any questions that people have. But then you've got to go and think about it some more. So this is not a rubber stamp that we're looking for here. This is some ideas that we have. Can I at least finish the high school page so that then we can.
Yeah, you can, and I wasn't pushing that too, I was just saying, I guess at some point over the next few weeks, we'll have to make that decision or let you know so that you're able to make those changes. going
Yes.
forward.
Are the alt school enrollment numbers included in the high school numbers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. That, one last note about the alt program. The other thing that moving it back to campus does is increases the likelihood and possibility that we would be able to tuition students into the program from neighboring districts as well, which is something that we've done in the past, and I think we should be actively, offering up as something going forward.
It would potentially help with revenue in that area too, by doing
It would
that.
absolutely
Yeah.
create revenue. All right.
Right.
So transportation at the high school, function 2720, this is a decrease of $114,964.40. This is an anticipated decrease in high school special education transportation. Again, anticipated, this is a big number that could swing dramatically. Increased CRTC athletic and field trip busing based on current transportation contract extension and anticipated needs. So the overall proposed FY27 budget for the high school shows a decrease, and this is with leaving where it is, a decrease of $401,265.83 compared to the FY26 proposed budget. All right. Again, you've got your line by line in your budget book. that coincides with these numbers. Does anybody have any additional questions about the high school? All right, the next section in the budget book, special education. So this is in your slideshow slides, page 19. Your budget book, we're looking at pages 32 to 38. Most of the information here in the budget book is talking about what programs and services that we offer for special education and what is included when we talk about the really other support services. The slide that is up and the charts in your budget book show the enrollment trends for special education and for 504 plans over the past several years. The details for special education, the detailed line-by-line budget that's in this section of the budget book, takes all of the special education expenses that we just talked about for the elementary, middle, and high school and puts them all together, and then also includes the district expenses. And that's just that section. Traditionally, that's been something that the board has wanted, to be able to look at special education kind of as a whole and not just cut into the pieces. So that is why that is there for you. Does anybody have any questions about that? Before we move into the last real section, which is district level expenses, we're getting very close to the point that I'm going to start blathering on. All right. So Becky, thank you. We're on slide 20 for those of you following on that. This is going to correspond to budget book pages 39 through 41. This covers the district level services. This is the tabs in your book. Tab 6, 7, 8, 7 and 8. Next year, these should all be included in like one section. We started some reorganizing of this this year. Again, looking at things by object code and then by function code. But these kind of go together here. So curriculum instruction and assessment is one of the district level services. This is in function code 2210. It shows an overall decrease of $2,068. Does anybody have any questions about curriculum services? Again, if you look in the line by line, you'll be able to see the specifics of what this is looking at. The one thing that fluctuates year over year is the professional development memberships. This is where by contract we pay for recertification expenses, and depending on the number of staff who are up for their recertification that year, it changes the dollar amount there. Regular education, again, function 1100, but these would be account lines that have a .0. Salary and benefit adjustments due to staffing changes, $7,246.47. This is the ESLL teacher. It's adjustment due to staffing. Special education, function 1200, again, district level. This is where the BCBA position was created. So the three para positions that were repurposed from the middle and high school came out of those budgets, were repurposed into a single position for BCBA. There is an overall savings by repurposing those positions because, well, the salary for a BCBA is significantly higher than what we would budget for an individual para. It's an individual person for one position, so only one benefit plan goes with it. Decrease in the need for travel and contracted services in special education as well, not related to the BCBA, just in general. The guidance, the 2120 function, this is an adjustment in salaries and benefits for district level guidance for school counseling, social worker, truancy position that we, and the truancy position that we have. And also this is due to the cost of the increase in our SRO services. That looks like a significant jump when you do the when you look at that in the line by line. But again, remember, it's not showing what the proposed increase was for FY26 because the FY26 adopted budget is based on the default from the previous year. So it was not a 1-year monumental jump, it's 2-year increase in SRO services. Nursing services, function 2130. There was a New Hampshire retirement that we have a district nurse stipend that we pay. There's a New Hampshire retirement rate decrease between FY25 and 26, but because again, proposed versus default budget last year, that shows a change of $3.96. Occupational and physical therapy, function 2160, is an increase of $10,914.76. Contracted services based on student needs. Interpreter services, which is function 2170, there's a decrease of $7,860.71 based on anticipated student needs. School board services, which is function 2310, is a decrease in $22,004.65. This is where legal and consultation fees were reduced to align with anticipated expenses. Consultation, so this is the first year that we haven't been reserving any room in the budget for the Conval lawsuit because it is now concluded. Consultation fees for E-rate were previously in this function and they've been moved to technology. And miscellaneous expenses reduced to actual anticipated costs, and those include the staff appreciation, retirement recognitions, and this is also where we budget for the fee waivers that you vote in place each year for the Lions Club Senior Dinner Nutrition Program fees, because we have to pay to have a nutrition program staff member present during that. And because of the anyhow. Administrative services is function 2320. This does not include the SAU apportionment. There is an increase of $19,315 when the SAU apportionment is added. The increase drops to $12,559. That is using our current estimates of the SAU apportionment. Those may very well be changing next month. Again, we got some new information from the Department of Education about that. But this includes unemployment compensation rate was reduced, the workers' compensation rate was increased, the copier lease and services we increased to reflect the actual anticipated costs. If you remember from your October financial report and your September financial report and your August financial report, that we've been spending more on copier services than we had budgeted previously, and this is trying to fix that so it aligns correctly. And then advertising was reduced to anticipated expenses. We got a really good, they have this new deal about how we advertise for teaching positions that is quite cost effective, and we're very excited about that. Student transportation functions are 2721 through 2725. This is an increase of $82,302.40, an increased student needs. The current contract for routine transportation services, again, it expires June 30th of 2026, but has an option for 2 one-year extensions. We have used that figure as our base budget for this. Let's see. The transfer to food service, function 5221. Again, the increase, we talked about this before, the $43,000 to increase it to the actual transfer that was required in FY25 as our best guess estimate. The line by lines that go with these are in that section. Does anybody have any questions there? 2 more to go. We're almost there. All right. Technology, second to last. Technology function is 2200. There's a decrease of $58,188.66. This is an adjustment to salaries and benefits and contracted service lines to reflect, wrote the word line twice, to reflect staffing changes and the shift to a combination from a one full-time help desk technician position to accommodate what we are currently using in FY '26 and continuing to use in FY '27. A combination of a part-time help desk technician coupled with the use of increased contracted services. Telephone services increased due to rates, and we are again researching other options to see if we can get a potential cost savings there. Travel has been reduced to reflect anticipated needs. Software reflects an increase in costs. There's a reduction in the hardware needs to reduction in student enrollment and staffing, and dues and fees are adjusted to reflect anticipated expenses. Questions? All right, last one, facilities department. All right, this is function 2600. We're looking at an overall increase of $80,527.11. There's an increase in salaries, and there's an increase in insurance requirements and insurance premiums. There's a decrease in training expenses. An increase in professional services realigns expenses to the appropriate lines and reflects anticipated costs. I'd like to remind folks on the board, those of you that were here last year, and to point out to everybody else that there was a significant realignment of where we were putting expenses in the proposed FY '26 budget to align supplies, equipment, contracted services, and repairs and some other things to where it actually were the more appropriate based on the accounting handbook. So this is continuing what we proposed last year, but makes the comparative with the adopted 26 look like there's larger jumps across the board. The realignments from last year are in the published FY '26 budget book, which is still available online. Let's see. The reduced disposal services to reflect anticipated need. Increase in the custodial services is a 3% increase of the current contract. However, the contract is out to bid, and we will be able to update this once the board approves a new contract. If the Hillsboro-Deering High School Alternative Program relocates, and your budget book just says the high school relocates, but there really is the alt program that we're talking about. Sorry about that. Relocates to the HD main campus, it will reduce the cost of custodial services. That contract is currently out for bid as well. Grounds maintenance contract is currently out for bid. We have a guaranteed 1 year extension of the current rate, and that was what was used right now for the FY '27 proposed budget, but you will have updated numbers to look at for that soon. And there's an increase in the energy lease payment to reflect the requirement, an increase in property liability insurance premium, an increase in supply expenses reflect current market and alignment of expenses. The propane we talked about before, electrical we talked about previously, the decrease in equipment we talked about before. There's an increase in the food service equipment to replace a refrigeration unit that is at its end of life. And the all program lines, once again, could be eliminated if we were to relocate the program to the campus. We would need to reserve some funds for renovations. And that brings us to the end of the facilities line by line. The last section that you have in your budget, or the second to last section you have in your budget book, is a draft line by line for the food service budget. So that's in tab 9. In tab 10, we have the line by line of the FY '26 adopted budget, the FY '27 proposed budget, and the FY '27 default budget as it currently stands. The FY '26, good Lord, the FY '27 budget is currently, as presented tonight, $672.72 rounded to $673 under the FY '27 default budget. Again, I want to remind everybody that when a position is removed from the budget, it is also removed from the default budget. The proposed budget is is $785,448.09 under the FY '26 adopted budget. But then I would go back to page 1, when we talked in the beginning, you want to then add in your SAU costs, you want to add in your, the proposed costs of the contracts. It all comes together, which was what I told you going into this process was our goal, was to meet the needs of students while bringing us into an overall operating budget that came in $0 above the current FY '26 budget. And what we have, if all four are approved, it is actually a decrease of $302,858 from the FY '26 approved budget, adopted budget, I guess is the way to put it. The last 3 pages that you have, we ran out of tabs, I'm sorry for that. The appendix of the salary schedules, so the teacher salary schedule is the 24-25 salary schedule. That is the one that was used to do the budgeting. And then the support staff is the 25-26, which was used to do the budgeting because when the contract ended. And then the last page that you needed to update in your books, I want to beg everybody's pardon. The page 45 with the trust fund balances that was published in the original version of the budget book that was online until tonight. I mean, it's still there because we're just publishing the new version with updated pages, but had a egregious math error, and I am sorry for that. I apparently was just very tired that day. So at your place tonight for members of the board is a new page 45 with the corrected data. In the budget books that were available to the public this evening, the hard copies, that already had the updated there. I believe that sometime between when I started to walk downstairs tonight and now the end of the meeting, the updated version, the PDF version of the budget book with the updated pages has been posted online and is available on the district's website with the FY '27 budget information. So the trust fund balances are, again, the balance as of June 30th of 2025, withdrawals that we had happen after June 30th of 2025, the FY '25 surplus that we anticipate being able to add once we have the fully audited budget numbers from FY '25, the anticipated June 30th FY '26 balances, and then for proposed trust warrant articles, quite frankly, we left them what we had them at last year for further discussion in December. And with that, concludes the presentation of the proposed FY '27 budget.
Thank you very much for that. Lots of information and continued reading and learning that. So again, and we'll have continued discussion Monday, the 1st, as well as future board meetings. Any questions on that budget before we move on to the board?
Not right now.
And I guess actually that is like under board discussion. That's the first topic. Is there anything that the board wishes to discuss at this point, or it's a lot of information? So I know we're probably still soaking it in and noodling on that. Is there anything that any information you'd like to get, or questions, comments?
Not
I
right
do on
now.
the trust fund if I could.
I don't think not right now.
Could we, what was your question again for a second?
Regarding the trust fund, sorry, I'm speaking out of turn on this, but because I'm a trustee and I just issued checks, I'd like to. Becky, did you include the $45,000 check for special ed that I just gave you in that number? Was there a deposit or some change? But we just approved $45,000.
I thought it was 27.
Did I write the wrong number on my minutes?
I think that there was an authorization to approve up to a certain amount, but the end of year request was less. For the.
I have it's 45,233, so I will verify,
I'll look too.
Okay.
Do you want me to email you? Or do you want to email me?
whichever.
No.
So we could follow up outside meeting then.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. And so back to board discussion too. Anything else? It sounds like the board is wanting the time to, we've got 2 board members that are not here that hopefully will be here December 1st. We're waiting until then to have sort of a full-blown discussion on some of the directions that we're looking to head in and other things. Okay. And then I guess, as always, if there's any questions that come up between now and, the Thanksgiving break, let me know and I can always get them to the superintendent and we can have those answers for the first. Moving on to the other items.
Can I break in there for a second? I'm gonna do my best to answer any questions that anybody has, but I am not in the office on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday this coming week. And the next board meeting is the following Monday. But I will happily receive whatever questions people have and do my best to get them answered, but I beg the board's indulgence and grace to not necessarily have them all ready for next Monday at the board meeting.
We won't be emailing and looking for responses on Thursday or Friday. And so we'll give you that patience with and being able to enjoy the time away with Thanksgiving break. But thank you for the work that you and your team have put into this budget and putting all that together. Next, I guess, item on the board discussion, the Deering Withdrawal Study Committee update, which I think we pretty much updated the board on at the last meeting on November 3rd, but we do not have the report back from legal counsel yet. That should be coming. He had mentioned Thanksgiving, so I'm assuming if not this week, it'll be when we can we wait till public comment?
Do you take it? It was a public hearing. Can we comment?
It's not a public hearing.
The board meeting, the public comment is coming up after board discussion.
The public hearing was for
Oh,
For the
accept the unanticipated
so-
funds.
unanticipated funds. And if you have comments on what was presented to us, you can share that when public comment comes up after board discussion.
The public hearing
pretty quick.
for the budget is in January, but
Thank you for the clarification there. So Deering Withdrawal Study Committee update. We were going to have a meeting on the 19th only if we had the report to the board from our legal counsel, which we don't have yet. That meeting got canceled as the committee had decided. And our next meeting there is in January. And where that stands now is our letter for the extension the committee requested was before the Board of Education, which I think they're actually reviewing that in December, but it's not necessarily an action item. So that'll give us 108 days until April of 2026. Other than that, I don't know if there's anything else on that you have, Catherine, on that committee. And then the policy committee update, we've caught up on the policies, and December 1st will be
can I,
more.
so since Krista and Jess aren't here, the policy committee met on November 6th. They have a number of policies that they voted to bring forward to the board at the December 1st meeting, knowing that this evening would be mostly the budget presentation. So next week, you'll get a new set. And then they will have to have another meeting because we just got the fall policy update from New Hampshire School Board Association.
So, cool, thank you for that. Thank you for that update. Facilities committee update, as the superintendent mentioned, there's a work group that's working on just a space assessment, looking at different areas on campus by square footage per student, and what it's being used for, and possible recommendations for other space. And that's what that committee is working on. So there's also recommendations that the facilities committee is working on to bring to the board for possible warrant articles to fund items on our capital plan. So that would be December / it'll be before the warrant deadlines. Anything else that I am omitting or forgetting on that? Any other board discussion? And so moving on to public comment for the board meeting, not the public hearing, but opportunity for members of the public to share an idea or concern with the board. Comments limited to 5 minutes per person, please. It's not the practice of the board to immediately respond to comments made. And if you'd like to, please state your name and town as usual.
Lee Bossy, Hillsboro. I can't comment on any of that discussion
Which discussion? The budget?
about the budget.
Yeah.
You may,
That
yeah,
was
you can.
part of- that was part of the board
If you'll
meeting.
All
indulge,
she was saying, it's not the public
Okay,
hearing. The
good.
public hearing is
no
general.
problem. Yep, misunderstood.
Could you please, for me, if for nothing
Okay.
else, use the
Okay.
I've got my hearing aids turned up all the way, they're like,
Helps all of us to hear and it helps.
all they're doing is buzzing in my ears, it's not doing it.
Thank
Gonna
you.
do what, I can't wait.
Lee Bossy, Hillsboro. If you'll indulge me, I have 2 public comments. One is publisher of the Messenger and the other is a taxpayer. As a publisher of the Messenger, I need your help. We love to promote this school, but in the last fall, I got no information on the superintendent's dinner, no information on the honor society, no information on the awards for sports. And our sole reporter is some decrepit elderly gentleman, me. So we can't possibly cover all the towns. Give us what we can. We'd love to promote the school. Secondly, on what was just reported, congratulations for your dedication to the school. I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the massive work it took to present that. Having said that, proposing a 1.18% reduction is insulting. You've reduced teaching positions and increased non-teaching staff positions, something that has been criticized nationally as the cause of rapid tax increases. Not only did you increase non-teaching staff, there's over $100,000 added to administrative costs. Ridiculous. In a school that has declining enrollment and poor performance, to continue to increase administrative staff and administrative costs is not justified. Understand that we have great teachers here, and teachers are the key to a great education. They deserve to be well compensated in salary and benefits and be respected. But the days of unpaid or low-paid teaching positions is long over. Look at those salaries in the back of that booklet. The salary of a single teacher in the Hillsboro-Deering School District is larger than the median income of a family in Hillsboro. As good as these teachers are, this is not the year for another salary increase to staff and teachers. I'm sorry to say that. You present the budget as $23 million and say it's a decrease. But that's deceptive. If you take the proposed HD budget, add the SAU portion, and add 2 staff pay raises, you come out at $25 million.
Still a decrease.
Yeah. Add those 2, add the $1 million of SAU and $500,000 of teacher and staff salaries, you come out at $25 million. Again, this is the time, and thank you for finally considering the alternative school. That's 4 years overdue. And if I heard it right, if you add all those things together, it's about $100,000 savings with transportation costs. And you don't have to reserve 50,000 for modifications. You've got 350,000 in the maintenance fund now. Use 50,000 so the taxpayers don't have to foot an extra 50,000. Thank you. Again, I sound harsh, I respect what you do, but I totally disagree with what's shaping up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else before we open it up to any potential board response? Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak?
For the record, Rashay Colcom from Hillsboro. I will try not to repeat what Lee's already hit so that we are not here any longer than we need to be. So I will be, excuse me, a little bit more specific with my list. I am curious as to why we have such a large adequacy aid drop, the decrease being 993,000. So I would love it if the public could hear a little bit more as to why that dropped. Is that because of the 95% that the Department of Education is
part of it.
That's part of it. And then,
The other part is the decreased enrollment.
okay,
What
because
was projected, so again, so the projected adequacy from last year,
decreased enrollment, right? But
decrease of enrollment
the amounts are going up.
plus the reduction to the 95% as recommended.
So it was mentioned again, as it's mentioned almost at every meeting, that the courts, found that the state is not paying enough, and the court set an amount of $7,300. What I'd like to remind the board and everybody that's in education, that we all know that the judicial system is not authorized to set policy. And by setting a dollar amount and stating that we have to pay that, they're trying to set policy. And that's not the role of the judicial system. It's not the role as in our Constitution. So it's quite ironic that they would say that we are not funding and that's unconstitutional, even though there is nowhere in the Constitution that says we have to provide an adequate funding. There's no dollar amount assigned. So they found us to be unconstitutional at the state level, and they tried to instill a policy that this educational body continues to repeat, even though we know they don't have the authority to do so. I'd like to talk about the SAU rent. Now, this is one of those situations where it's the money is switching hands from one to another, and I get that. But the SAU is funded by Washington and Windsor and Hillsboro and Deering. When you reduce the rent at the SAU level, that gives Washington and Windsor a decrease in their budgets. And it puts the burden on the Hillsboro-Deering residents to make up the difference in that revenue. And as it is, Hillsboro-Deering residents are already funding technology, we're funding the telephones, we're funding other things in there, and we're not being fair to the Hillsboro-Deering taxpayers when we give Washington and Windsor a decrease on their SAU bill. So yeah, it may look like we're just kind of sending money from one hand to the other here, but it matters, just like it mattered with the school resource officer. It matters as to who's contributing to that bottom line. So we have just given Washington and Windsor a $20,000 decrease in their expenses, and the taxpayers of Hillsboro-Deering just received a $20,000 increase in our expenses because our revenue just dropped. And that is something that is clearly avoidable by just going back to the agreement that we're supposed to have, and actually even charging the fees that we should be charging at the SAU level, because Washington and Windsor is benefiting from our technology and other aspects from our SAU office. I would also like to request that this board not open the greenhouse this winter. If you haven't looked, last winter, we spent $4,446 trying to heat that greenhouse, which has plastic walls with a thermal rating of R2, which basically means we're just blowing heat right out the plastic walls. And I don't think any one of us do that at home. We've also obligated the taxpayers of Hillsboro-Deering to a $2.6 million energy performance contract to put in better energy performing lights and equipment in this place. But we're trying to heat a greenhouse with an R2 thermal rating factor. Last year, we put in a total of 2,763 gallons of propane. We were averaging 120 gallons a week. And I ask every one of you, how many of you would do that in your own home? And if you wouldn't do it in your own home, please don't do it with our tax dollars. It just isn't efficient. And we saw last year from the pictures that I took, the plants were not growing in December. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashay. Any comment from the board or superintendent at this time?
No.
All right. And, I'm sorry.
You've got our members of the
Yeah.
public.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Right, once, twice, 3 times, so 6:32 or so is when we'll mark that we're,
Probably 8:32.
oh, yeah,
Wish it was
actually 8:32,
6:32.
wishful thinking. Closing public comment, there's no one else at this time from the public that wishes to speak. And moving into action items.
So there are 2, and I apologize that they are not listed on the agenda accurately.
I do have I guess the first one is from our public hearing, which we did open up again. So again, apologies for the communication issue with the calendar. But looking for a motion from the board to accept the unanticipated funds that were received in the amount up to $19,546.88 from Wadley, Star and Peters.
So moved.
Catherine's making that motion. Paul is making the second. Any further discussion on that? I believe that includes everything that we do need to include. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So 3-0-0, that motion passes. And so the second one is to approve the budget transfer request that our business administrator, Vicki, went over in her report as presented. It's in our packet. So is there a motion to approve that as presented?
I'll
Paul,
make that motion.
I'll
making the
second.
motion and Catherine seconding. Any further discussion? And so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So 3-0-0, that motion passes. I believe is that it for action items? Not beginning or omitting anything? Nothing on
I
the
believe that is it.
Okay, I was just taking a minute to think too, if anyone else, no one else. Moving on to action items, do we need non-public?
Not tonight.
All right, and yes, and lots of information to think about, and yeah, I don't need to call back to order because we're already in the board meeting. Is there someone that would like to make the last
I'll
one?
make a motion to adjourn.
The time of night, it's hard to say that, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
My watch is dead. What is the time?
It is 8:33, 8:34.
8:34.
Yeah, 8:34.
8:30.
Down to the minute, so we will adjourn 3-0-0 until Monday, December 1st. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for the later hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's still recording, but